Welcome to a first of a series of 9 recaps of my competitive chess games that I played in my most recent tournament in Sardinia, Italy. I was playing in Section A of this tournament that's 2,000 ELO plus. So I was one of the bottom seeds, ranked 152 out of 170 contestants. So naturally, my first round I was paired against a 2300 from Poland FIDE Master. I have the white pieces. This is recap number 1 out of 9. So I remember I didn't have that much time to prepare before the round, and I was on very low sleep that day because I caught a very early flight at like 6 a.m. So I start off with e4, my opponent goes with e6, and crazy enough, out of all the recaps, guess how many recaps I've done of my tournament experience since August 2023? We're at recap 68. Out of all 68 games, is my point, I have never played against this opening over the board. So I go with d4, my opponent goes with d5, and now I go with knight c3, the winnower. Loading, knight f6. First time I see this over the board. Knight f6, I know of it. It's the classical variation of the French defense, but it is very rare to see it, especially when you play against the winnower, and this is the most common move, bishop f4, that guarantees very active play, very crazy play. Knight f6 is a bit more calm because it offers a closed position after I play e5 and this center is blocked out. Now I go with the push f4, very common. c5, trying to pressure the center on d4, very common and thematic for the French defense. I go with knight f3, defending, and so far this was just theory. We just develop our pieces, my opponent castles quick, and I go with the natural move bishop e2. So far so good. I'm actually surprisingly still in book after 9 moves, which I was very happy about, given the fact that this is the first time I play this opening. So my opponent goes with b6 here. I remember feeling quite happy when seeing this, because I was quite worried about queen b6, kind of stemming at my 2 weaknesses on d4 and b2. But b6 is just like a reinforcing move to the c5 pawn and is more solid, is less aggressive. So I kind of appreciated that, and I found the time to castle with my 2 pieces. My opponent now surprises me with something I've never seen in this opening, whether online or in person, and that is the move f5. And this led me to take a little think, because it's the first time I've seen this, and it completely transforms the shape of this game. You see, black closes the center with a move like f5, and now play does not happen in the center. If you want to win this chess game, you're going to have to come up with some nice flank play. So on the king side, or here on the queen side, I don't know, a4, a5, I don't know. I thought of this en passant during the game, but overall evaluated that black is a little bit better here, even though I have the e5 square. And in fact, it is an equal position. And after a tender 5 minutes of reflection, I find the best move in this position, d takes c5. And it's a very attractive option because, look, the bishop can't take here because I have knight takes d5. And after takes, I would take with my queen, check this king has to move, and then I would trade off these pieces and win back a full pawn here after all of these madnesses. Oh no, actually I win 2 pawns. And if the pawn takes, is the same thing. I sacrifice my knight, win at least 1 pawn here, and if you take back, I win a second pawn with queen takes c6. So my opponent has a forced reply of knight takes c5, which we all love to see when we have to force our opponent on a move. Now I go with knight d4, which is my first mistake of the game. And I'm going to ask you the question, you, the audience. Why do you think this is a mistake? It's inaccurate, it's a small mistake, but if you can find out why, maybe your chess has gained a little plus. This is a little mistake because in the French defense, you never want to let this bishop trade off for your light square bishop. The c8 bishop for black is terrible in the French defense because it stays underneath the pawn structure of the black pieces, right? Whereas my bishop is completely fine, symbiotic with my pawn structure, and is thus a good bishop. So when I play knight d4, I let takes, and bishop a6 on the board. That kind of forces, because it's pinned behind it, a bishop trade of the bad and the good bishop. So that's why the engine doesn't like it. So therefore, the only good move in this position, or the best move, shall I say, is bishop b5, for a completely different reason than what I just said. So here, bishop b7, you actually trade, and now you gain a tempo with knight d7. This is the idea. Queen d7, and you just go about your life. You give the bishop pair. That's what I was supposed to play, which obviously I don't want to give the bishop pair, but I guess it's a close position, so that's why the engine prefers keeping knights on the board and trading off the bishops instead. So, making sense of that, I go knight d4, my opponent trades, and it's still a very equal position. I mean, this inaccuracy is not like life transforming, and my bishop is centralized. I was very happy about this, so my opponent goes with bishop b7 in this position. Bishop a6, as we said, is the better move, but bishop c7 has some really nice long-term things on this long diagonal if this diagonal opens up. I go with b4. I loved this move at the time because it asks this knight a question on c5. Do you go back down and admit to having a bad knight that was just hanging out on c5? Or are you going to go knight e4 and go into this trade variation and let me have a 3-on-2 on the queen side here? And that's exactly what happened. Knight e4, the active move, the best move. Knight takes, d takes, as black wants to open up this bishop here with a e3 in the future, and not f takes, right? Here you're kind of just like murdering your bishop. So d takes. Now I go a3, standing up for my pawn here, and preparing the push c4, playing on this small advantage that I've cultivated on the queen side against a protected passed pawn in the center. So if we were in a scenario of an endgame and all these pieces are traded off, in the king endgame, this is better for the black pieces thematically because of this protected passed pawn. So I don't want an endgame, thus I don't want trades. Very easy approach. So after rook c8, I go with c4, and at this point, I'll show you the footage of the actual game happening. You can see my body posture. I'm very, very confident in this position. I have a lot of space as the white pieces. I retain the bishop pair. I am fighting for the open d file, and I look like I am in control of this position. And my opponent now takes an 18-minute turn to find this next move, that is g5. An incredibly interesting move that is both space-taking on the king side, so taking a lot of space, but also opening up the g file for a potential attack on my king. And that's why I got a little bit scared, because I remember when I played a move that's very ambitious like g5, it was g5, a few months back in my Sevilla tournament with the black pieces, out of a semi-Slav, I believe, and I played g5 and it went really good for me as the black pieces out of kind of like a closed center similar to this. So knowing and remembering that pattern, I got kind of scared, and here I took a long time to figure out that takes allows bishop takes, and this is just too strong for the black pieces. These pawns are rolling, and also g3 is bad. So after takes, king h8, I can't go king h1 myself because I lose my queen to a discovered check of this bishop. And so my king is kind of in the air. Even some king f2 things are immediately punished by bishop h4. So both of these variations didn't work, which furthered my fear of this position. And so I played a second best move. The best move in this position was not the two mistakes that I looked at, which I'm very relieved about, that I evaluated well those positions. It was actually just ignoring completely g5 and playing rook ad1, which is crazy. After takes, you now just have support of this bishop with a rook, and this bishop has some nice discoveries, and the queen is now eyeing this king side maybe for some attacks, maybe on g3 if we don't want to lose our queen. So after g5, I go bishop e3, defending everything. It's solid, but it's a bit weak in the sense that I'm consolidating here. My bishop has not advanced to a better square. It's kind of a backing up more than a moving forward, if you see what I mean. If you're an army, you don't want to move backwards in the game of chess. Though, my opponent goes queen c7. I reply with queen b2, getting off of this file prophylactically to get my queen into safekeeping. And takes is a mistake, allowing bishop takes f4, and now my opponent plays king h8, preparing to release a rook on this g-file, and now I have a question for you. Pause this video, take a little while, and I want you to decide between two moves in this position. Would you play bishop h6 in this position, or rook a d1, trying to get that file? After king h8, a move in this position attracted my eye, and I finally went along with it and played in this position bishop h6, attacking this rook, and for further reasons, more nice things. So my opponent moves the rook to the g-file, as expected, threatening some e3 things, really going on that weak g2 pawn, and in this position, I play a crazy move. I took a lot of time off my clock. I still have like only 20 minutes until the 40th move now. It's crazy. It's a stirring emotion, and I go for rook takes f5, sacrificing my rook. And in this position, the rook sacrifice definitely works. After much calculation, takes e6 check. Here you have to defend. If you go rook g7, it's checkmate on the board. So you have to give a piece first. Bishop f6, I take, and now rook g7. And here I would be completely winning, I calculated, in this endgame. Or even, no, what did I see? I saw like e7 first, or some crazy things. Oh no, even like rook d1 I saw, and it was just completely over, right? But I was too far in that calculation and completely forgot to take out the close-up, the zoom of the camera. And instead, here, I completely forgot that black can just deny the sacrifice. That's right, putting back the eval bar, this is actually advantage for the black pieces, and this is a mistake. Rook takes f5 is a mistake because my opponent just goes with this nice silent rook g6, now attacking my bishop and my rook, and it's getting serious. If I move my rook out of the way, my bishop falls, and if I move my bishop, now this works because I have nothing on the king moves, and it's safe. So I have to find the only move, rook h5 defending, still small advantage for black because they have nice attacking things. e3 is played on the board, threatening rook takes g2 check, bishop f1 to defend, only move in this position, and now my opponent misses a win with queen c6. By the way, we'll go back to rook a d1 at the end of the video to see what we missed. But queen c6 here is also a miss, speaking of misses, because bishop f3 is actually a winning move after rook h3, e2 is a great move. It's hard to explain why. On rook takes, let's see the engine here. E takes f1 queen, rook takes, and I'm still down a pawn, but now you win the bishop. And it's over. And so that was missed, but queen c6 is a valid option to just continuously put pressure on this pawn. And now I have to look for my opponent's threat. It's not rook takes g2 right now, we're seeing this. And I have to get creative. I was like, okay, my opponent's coming in with rook g8. So seeing that I have to block this g-file, now I come up with a move that I execute on very quickly, and that is bishop f4. I want to meet rook c g8 with bishop g3, and then I'm completely safe. And now my opponent makes a move that literally makes my heart drop. You can see the live footage here. I collapsed. My opponent goes with the silent killer, the tear-dropping queen f3, going off of this pin with the rook and forking my bishop and rook. And now I am lost. I have to salvage this position. I play the best move, bishop g5, hoping that, okay, if you take my rook, I take the bishop, and I'm down the exchange, and I still have some perks here. But no. Rook takes g5, rook takes g5, and if you take back my rook, you lose the queen. So queen f2 was played, intermediate move, intermezzo, and now with this check here, forcing my king to react. And now after bishop takes, I still went on to play 10-15 moves more because I have 2 pawns for a bishop, but my opponent seized complete control over this game. And in fact, bishop f4 was a complete blunder, losing the game, and I had to resign a few moves later. Now let's look at rook a d1, because rook a d1 is the only time in this game I was very advantageous, and let's explore why, because it's a similar reason than what I played in the game. So at this point in the position, I have to play rook a d1, still going about this queen that I really nicely prophylactically placed on b2, And the idea is on anything that black plays, let's say rook cd8, which is an obvious move to take up the file, I go rook d6, activating my rook, attacking e6, and off any chance that you want to grab some material, e takes d6, discover check on the king, queen g7 to block, and bishop e5 wins the queen clean. Rook d6, activating the rook. Rook g8 is recommended, but now g3 is a valid defense option, which wasn't possible during the game at any time. Rook g7, and now I can take this pawn for free, and I'm up a pawn. Like, literally, I had such a good position, these two rook move ideas, instead of the forbidden apple, bishop h6 and rook takes f5, was the better procedure. This teaches you in chess that you just need to calm the excitement down and look for more than one option, even though one looks severely appetizing. I hope you enjoyed recap number 1. I have 0 out of 1 in this tournament after today's game, and tomorrow I am playing another strong player, a 2200 from Germany. Let's get it, let's go.